A special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the McAllen Independent School District will be held Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, beginning at 5 p.m. at the Dr. Ricardo Chapa Boardroom inside the Administration Building of McAllen Independent School District at 2000 North 23rd Street, McAllen 78501. At this meeting, there may be discussion and action by the board on the items and subject listed as below. 1, we'll call the meeting to order. 2, public comments. There are no public comments. So we'll move to item number 3, approval to proceed with a voter approval tax rate election, the VADER, and I will turn it over to Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Tonight we bring the voter-approved tax rate election for approval. We have Ms. Cindy Medrano Richards, our Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations, who will proceed with more information, and we are requesting action on this item.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez and Board of Trustees. Based on yesterday's 7th budget workshop, we did receive some really good feedback from the Board of Trustees and some inquiries. So at this time, I'd like to loop back to some of that discussion from yesterday to provide you with the information. The first one was a very good question that we had. It was a basic question of what is a VATRE? So when we look at a VATRE, or the voter-approved tax rate election, state law requires that school districts seek voter approval to raise the maintenance and operation tax rate above a prescribed amount. This election is referred to as the voter-approved tax rate election, the VATER. Again, just to go over the tax rate components. The district's tax rate is made up of 2 components. The first one being the maintenance operations, or M&O tax rate. The second being the interest and sinking INS tax rate, also known as the debt service tax rate. The M&O tax rate is used for day-to-day operations of the district, including teacher and staff salaries, utilities, books, electronic devices, student supplies, district insurance, maintenance and custodial supplies, transportation, mental health needs, and other items needed to educate our students. The INS tax rate can only be used to pay the principal and interest payments on bonds sold to construct or furnish district facilities. It cannot be used to fund district operations. Open this up a little bit more. Okay. What we have here is a comparison of what happens with our tax rate as we proceed and move forward. For tax year 2021, just to set the foundation, the M&O tax rate that was board approved was set at $1.0486, and the INS tax rate, again, board approved, was $0.0884 for a total tax rate of $1.1370. Now, what we've got in the next column is the tax rate without a voter approved tax rate election. At this point, we're going to start with the state compression. What was published in the newspaper was a proposed M&O tax rate of $1.0197 and a proposed INS tax rate of 7.67 for a total proposed tax rate of $1.0964. As a result of the projected increase in property values of a little over 5%, there's a high probability that there will be an additional local tax compression. And what that does to our M&O tax rate, it compresses it further from the $0.019 to $0.9980. At this point, for our illustrative purposes, we're maintaining our INS rate at the 7.67 That leads us to a projected M&O and INS total tax rate of $1.0747. When we compare that $0.0747 to the current 2021 total tax rate of $1.1370, that would be a reduced tax rate, total tax rate of 6.23 cents. That's what would happen this year if we did not proceed with a VATRE. Now, when we look at our pennies, we do have a maximum of enrichment pennies of 17 cents. Our enrichment pennies right now are 12.86 cents, and that leads us to our tax capacity of 4.14 cents. And if we look at the last tax column, you're going to see what would happen if the district moved forward with a voter-approved tax rate election. Again, our proposed M&O tax rate right now would be at $1.0394. And if you look a little further down, it's broken down because that tax rate is based on the maximum compressed rate, the local compression of 0.8694 cents. Our current enrichment pennies of 12.86 cents. That's a subtotal of 0.9980 cents. Then you would add in the 4.14 cents for a total M&O tax rate of $1.0394. When you add the proposed INS tax rate of and keeping that consistent, of 0.0767 cents, that would give us a total tax rate of $1.1161 cents. Now, when we compare that to the 1113.70, which is the current 2021 tax rate, that would be a reduction of 2.09 cents on there. That gives you a little track record of what's going to happen with the tax rate. Again, these are preliminary. We are waiting for the certified values to be released at the end of July. We'll go through this entire exercise one more time to solidify these rates, but these are some preliminary numbers that we have as of today. Now, what does that do? When you look in terms of how much revenue this would generate, it would generate an additional tax revenue at a 96% collection rate of a little over $3.2 million, an additional state funding of almost $2 million for a proposed increase, possible revenue increase of a little over $5 million. How would this affect our taxpayers? Again, we're talking at, we're looking at 4.14 cents, and for a $100,000 home value, it would be an increase of 41.40 cents a year, $3.45 a month. For a $200,000 home, that would be 82.80 cents per year for the year, $6.90 on a monthly basis. And for a $300,000 home value, that would be 124.20 cents a year, about $10.35 a month. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Ms. Richards. We are going to open it up with questions, and we'll go straight to our Zoom team. Trustee Saldivar. Yes, sir. We have a motion to approve with the Vader. Is there a second? If we get a second, we can discuss.
I'll get a second.
We have a second by Trustee Aliceda. All right. Comments, questions? And we'll start with Trustee Saldivar.
Thank you. I'm in support of this. As you can see, in crunching those numbers, they're actually a lot better than I had been informed as I was working with folks in TASB. And this, I think the approach should be that this is a comprehensive approach across the board for leveraging $5 million additional money, and therefore some monies that we now have within our current budget can be freed up to do other things, including compensation, and including projects and services that we've already started for benefiting our children. Because that will give us, if you think about it, $10 million, 5 additional plus 5 that we already have budgeted. The other thing is, I had a couple of folks wondering what I said the other day regarding that the district is in sound financial position, and it is. We've gotten 7 superior ratings on our accountability side on the first, and another, and more importantly, is that according to HB2, you must be able to demonstrate to the community. Now read what it says. It says, the guidelines identify the scope and areas of investigation of an efficiency audit. Now, whether or not we are allowed to and whether or not we do, I think we should do an efficiency audit so we're transparent. It goes on to say, according to the guidelines established under House Bill 3, the purpose of the efficiency audit is to provide information to the voters regarding the district's fiscal management, efficiency, and the utilization of resources before the voter-approved tax ratification election. And that's why it's important. It goes on to state in these guidelines is that the audit that we select, and I would suggest we use our internal audit, our external audit that's already available, is that he must complete that audit within a certain timeline, no later than October. And then the Board of Trustees must then have a public meeting to inform the public of those findings, of those efficiencies. And I think this is important, again, for transparency. A lot of what we do with our money is available on our website. We're the only school district in South Texas and only a handful in the state of Texas where all our finances are online. And so we have been prudent with taxpayer money, but we're at a point in order to be competitive, in order to be able to attract and retain, in order to continue the programs and services at the level that we need, in order to grow, especially after the ESSER funds run out, we must have a mechanism that will allow us to continue to move forward. Because again, according to Mo Casey in the report they presented to us on the second meeting, is that we're really out of options now. We can no longer do maintenance tax notes, which we've had two, which we leveraged $52 million that they allowed us to do roofs and air conditions and things that were needed in the schools. We cannot do the disaster pennies are about to run out, which by the way, the taxpayer right now is paying 0.0289. So if we approve this, we're only talking about 1.02, and the reality, when you compress, it's even less than that. So I think this is a good opportunity. I'm not one for taxing, but we need a TRE mechanism before we even do anything else. If we're even thinking about a bond down the road, if and when that gets approved, you have to use all your local resource funding in order to sustain the maintenance and operation of those. Otherwise, you're going to fall back into a situation that we have been in the past, and we're likely to be starting to move into in the future, where you don't have the money to maintain and you're going back to roofs that leak, air conditioners that aren't working, and et cetera, and it'll be a vicious cycle. So as you can see from the information, as Richard said, it's a very doable thing, and I think the public has a right to know how well we've done for them and what great programs that our educators deliver on each and every day with what we have available now. And this is a way to ensure that we're able to continue to move in a very positive way, leveraging the funds that are available to us at the local level, and continue to work on all other fronts to find other revenues as we have. We have millions of dollars coming in through grants for very specific purposes. So again, we're showing the community we've done everything we possibly can, and this is an ask we need in order to attract and retain, in order to continue programs and services, in order to continue to maintain appropriately, in order to do the things that we all want as we continue to move forward. The bottom line, we're operating at a level that everybody expects, the Cadillac and above, at Chevrolet prices. And so we gotta inform the community, this is where we are, and this is where we need help, but look at what we've delivered. Look at what we'll be able to do. Imagine if we can get to that funding level, we'll not only be able to maintain it, we'll be able to excel, because we're gonna have great educators attracted to our classes. Thanks, Mr. President, appreciate the time.
Thank you, Trustee Saldivar. Trustee Peña.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I apologize to the community for not being there in person. I work an 8 to 5 job, and I just can't make it at 5, but I'm here. And, I agree that we need to be transparent, but we need to be transparent and inform the community of everything that we do on the daily, not just because we're asking for money. And I'm not in support of this. I'm not in support of asking the community to give us any more money. This administration needs to start tightening their buckle, their belt, tightening their belt. We enter into agreements with special projects. We've got 2 or 3, maybe 4 special projects sitting on the table right now that have not been started. We're asking people to allow us to increase their taxes. I don't care if it's by ½ cent or 1 cent or 4 cents. To some people, that may be $40 added to their taxes. That may be $400, depending on where they live and what their home looks like. It's still a lot of money to some people. Families have still not recovered from either losing their jobs or having to quit their jobs to stay home when everybody has to go virtual in 2020. And so I am not in favor of asking asking the community to give us one more penny when we need to find ways to be able to leverage our money that we already have. So when we talk about the UTRGV project, and I mentioned this yesterday and I'll mention it again, it's a $12.5 million investment in a project that is essentially an early college high school. That is what it is. The difference is we're partnering with UTRGV. $12.5 million that we could maybe somehow find a way to join that project later. It's not an exclusive project with McAllen ISD. The same day they announced that project with McAllen ISD, they turned around and made the exact same announcement with Edinburgh ISD. So it's not exclusive and innovative to us only. So I think that's one project we can look at. We have several other projects. We're asking the community to allow us to raise their taxes for $3 million. We can find $3 million in some of these projects. We found $2 million the other day, just crunching numbers off the top of our head. I don't think it's fair to the community. I will not support it, and I stand by that. I think we can be transparent on the daily and not have to hire another firm, which is going to cost us a pretty penny. And so, with that said, I am not going to support this, and if it passes, I will be a staunch proponent of it. I will not support this. I will not ask the community to give us more money when we need to be a little more prudent with the way we spend our money. I know where we're at. I realize the situation, but we got there. We need to find a way to get out.
Thank you, Trustee Peña.
That's it. I yield the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. Trustee Alvarado.
I just have some questions, and I think it might either go be Steve, Mr. Miller, or Ms. Gonzalez. It's on the tax ratification election, the last one we passed. Who ran that for the district? Was it Utah?
No, the last TRE?
Yeah,
I led that, sir.
you did, but
Yes.
who, okay. So I just want to kind of go over that. It's not a usual school board campaign or any other type campaign, right? We put it out, and we as a board cannot campaign for it, right? I mean, the last time I don't remember, or maybe you can talk to the legalities of Mr. Crane, right? There's not much we can do as a board once we call for it.
No, you're not supposed to try to influence the election, make any speeches about the election, say anything about the election. The only thing the district can put out is factual statements about the TRE.
Okay.
And that's what I did, Mr. President, if I may.
Yes,
I know
sir.
that the last time the community was supportive of the tax ratification election by a large percent, we were very appreciative of that. We were able to put facility security at the forefront, so we put $1 million into that. This is also where we got our 19 officers at the elementary. So because of that TRE, our kids are safer at the elementary with certified peace officers there. We also did police department upgrades district-wide, so that helped us tremendously. And at the time, we needed upgrades to our intercom systems, specifically at Cathy, Houston, Milam, and Seguin, and we were able to do that. We also got 134 defibrillators that came in handy, and a big one was all the renovations we did to our science labs at McAllen High School, Memorial High School, Rowe High School, and Lamar Academy, to the tune of $827,000 at each school for science labs. So we also put in some staff compensation for 1.4, and that was for one-time retainment. And we had contingencies of around 500,000, but it did put us in a position to put our district in a better position to continue delivering a quality education. And that's all we're asking for now from an administrative standpoint. And believe me, the last thing we want to do is go out to our community and ask for dollars. But I think we're at a point in the game as a school district, as a high-performing school district, where we need to take a serious look at it. I mean, we need to look at our tax rate and how it compares to other communities around us with regard to local effort. And then we need to consider what we want to do as a team to provide our students with the best education that we can through safe facilities, through facilities that not only have great learning environments, but we also look at air quality, we look at lighting, we look at overall safety, we look at the overall environment, and we want to make sure that, and we know that there's some efficiencies that we can find in projects, right? But we're talking about $5 million, 5.1 moving forward every year, not a $4 million one-time cut a project. So let's just say, for example, we cut a $4 million project, we can give a one-time incentive. But if we go out to the community and they support this, we're talking about approximately $5.1 million every year moving forward. So as adults, I'm here to say that we could benefit from this, but I'm also a realist, right? If the community doesn't feel like it's time or it's the will of the board right now. But as an educational leader and as somebody that's been with this district for a long time, it's a very difficult to go out and ask for people for pennies right now. Very difficult. But it's time. It's time that we at least consider it, and that's why we brought this forth.
And I have a few more questions for you, but I just want to understand the 2 million, Ms. Richards. I was not aware that that was part of the equation, so how does that work? Is that something that's guaranteed every year, or are we in danger of losing that, or how is that factor into this?
Yes, well, one is the tax rate itself. We look at what the state is able to provide, and once we run it through the template that we have.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, it's producing the 1.9. Of course, that's going to depend on tax collections. That formula will always consider a local tax effort.
Yes, ma'am.
It also considers ADA that we have at the time. So there are other data elements that are embedded in there once you run the numbers through the actual template itself. But I think the two most significant ones will be tax effort. At this point, we calculated, I had the team go back and run it through our template at a 96% collection rate. Very comparable to the number that was mentioned yesterday of 3.5. Of course, that was at 100% assumption on there. And in addition to that, it was based on the current ADA that we have projected for next year. If that increases or decreases, that may change the amount that we have. So it won't be an exact, like the collections won't be an exact 3.2 every year. The ADA funding won't be an exact 1.9 because there are other
But it's close.
data elements involved. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And of course, these are preliminary numbers. Once we do have our certified values issued out in July, we will run the numbers again. The other number that might change might be that maximum compressed rate, the 0.8694, although we think that that may hold true also at that point, because those are also updated once we come back from the summer break. Those aren't released yet, but that's the best estimate we have for our maximum compressed rate. So these are estimates.
Okay.
But this is what we have today. We wanted to at least present something that we might have
Perfect.
for
So,
you.
yeah, just a ballpark, I'm not holding, I just
Yes.
didn't understand the additional state funding, but you answered that question
Yes.
for me. Yesterday's 3-point increase for teachers, how much was that total? I know I have it there, but I want to publicly just, if you can bring that number, Muslim, with us. It cost us what, around 5 million, somewhere around there?
Which one,
To fund
The
the 3%,
scenario?
yes.
yes, it was 6.4. I can bring that one up
That's
if you
fine.
like.
That's fine.
It
It
was
just-
about
it-
6.4 for the scenario that was approved, scenario C that was
Right.
approved. And that included also the one-time holiday pay in
Okay.
there.
So you
About
take out the
6.4
holiday
million.
pay, 5 million would put us around 2.5, 3% pay increase without anything, right? Without the additional holiday
That was a
pay.
3% pay increase,
No.
and that capped the administrators at 1,700, if I can remember correctly.
I'm just talking
Then you
straight,
look at the
I'm just
cost
talking
for it.
straight percentage to salary to our staff. What does that equate to?
3%.
About 3%?
3% for, yes, 3% for teachers and librarians, 3% for all
Every
other
year.
staff, and administrative were capped at 1,700, which means that 3% is a little higher for some and a little lower for others.
No, I totally understand. I guess what I'm going with this, and, because at first I was 100%, didn't want to bring this back, but you're talking 3% gives you a foundation every year for a pay increase. Now, it'll be up to y'all to find additional 2-3%, so we're looking at 5-6% for our teachers every year.
Yes, and the intent, the way we're looking at it here is that we would have dollars that we're using from our local funds to do projects. So we wouldn't have to use these local dollars that we're doing for HVACs and for intercom systems and things of that sort. Kind of like we did with ESSER funding, where
Right.
we were able to pay compensation and then we freed up money for facilities. So in essence, we weren't using ESSER funds. However, it was only possible because of ESSER funds. So it's along that same line of we want to fortify our buildings, because I'm a parent and I know that I see parents in this room right now and I see teachers in this room right now. And the number one thing that we want is for our students and for our teachers and everybody in all of our buildings to be safe. Right, so I think that we've done a lot over the last 6-7 years But this would just put us at the next level, and for obvious reasons. If you look at what's going on around the country and you look at some of the challenges that we're facing, I want to be able to look at parents and say, we're doing all that we can to keep your children safe. And that's going to take, it's going to take local effort, and it's going to take everybody coming together or not. But I think that if in our current state, with our current tax rate and our current situation moving into the future, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult. So we have to take action locally, and then we have to keep advocating for change at the state level. That's the best game plan.
And just a few more questions. Would you commit then, and I realize this might not be a voter tax, those in OTRE, voter approved tax rate election for compensation. You might use it for other. But let me just bottom line it then. Would you commit, as long as you're superintendent, that $5 million would go for compensation?
I'd hate to throw out a number right now, but what I will commit is that this gives us the best chance of being as competitive as we can moving into the future. As far as a number, I'd have to sit down with the money team and see where we're at, because we're already starting at a deficit.
Yes.
So it makes it very difficult to put a number out, so I don't want to be held to a number, but I will say, and I will be held to the fact that this gives us the best chance of being as competitive as possible within our current reality as a school district, as we're compared with other school districts around us. It happens every year, but we get our percentages compared, we get our pay raises compared, but we don't get our tax rates compared, and we don't get our state funding compared. So we have to look at the total picture to say, well, why did this district do this? Well, their local effort is a lot higher than our local effort, so that's for starters.
Okay.
Yes, and we are looking at, like I said, right now we're estimating a net gain of about a little over $5 million, but yet we are coming in at the 6.4 that we'll be looking at to balance out the budget, just to break us even without looking at compensations for the next budget cycle.
Right. I get that, but we'll have to look at, I think to the point that was brought up, other stuff. And I know that I discussed that project, that $4 million project. Even if you take that away, it's still not a recurring. So I know it would have to come from something else. But I just I'm looking at it from a compensation opportunity. So I don't think from my end, and hopefully the rest of the board, I got one more year, but the rest who stay will push for some type of pay increase no matter what. I mean, as far as now that we have a little bit of additional money, what that percentage is, I know it was not a fair question, but I at least want to have that discussion that it's always going to be a pay increase. We just don't know what percentage, 1, 2, 3, 4%.
Yes,
5%.
I mean, our lifeline is our teachers. We know that.
Right.
We know that great schools have great teachers. Great school districts obviously have great teachers. And I won't get into the scores that came in this year, but they're off the charts. I will say that. Hats off to all of our teachers. Hats off to all of our administrators. They'll be coming out soon, and you will be very, very proud of our district. So that being said, absolutely. Every year we want to put our staff in a position to be as competitive as possible. I mean, we're McAllen ISD. It's just, it comes down to how we come together as a community. That's the bottom line. And this is one where we need to come together.
Cindy, yesterday, a discussion you were asked by another trustee that we were at the same level in 2018. I just want to confirm that we gave these pennies back then, right? I might have misunderstood it. I didn't have great reception on the road yesterday. I just want to make sure I understood that conversation.
The question I believe that led to that was, have we ever had $1.17 as a tax
Yes,
rate?
ma'am.
I have a chart here that provides our tax rate history, and of course it is on our website, our financial transparency website. But we go back to tax year 2006. The highest we had, of course, was in 2006 was $1.4780, but that's because of the way that the tax ran at that point. But with that as an exception, the highest year we had was $1.1650, and those were between tax years 2009 through 2014. A lot of that had to do with some declared disaster tax rate that we had at that point. What we're seeing is after that it went down a penny to $1.1550, and really the reduction there occurred in the INS side. It went from 12.5 cents to 11.5 cents. That was the penny difference we saw, but that again was in the INS tax rate. Then from there, when we got into tax year 2019, that's when we started working with the calculation determinations as a result of HB3, and you start seeing the tax rate compressing. So you're going to start seeing the M&O tax rate really decrease there to $1.05, $1.04, $1.04 again, $1.01. So you're seeing that M&O being compressed because of HB3.
Okay. And I apologize for taking a little bit of time, but I just want to make sure, because it's not an easy decision to ask our taxpayers, even if it's just, you know, pennies that translate, it still translates to money, like showed on the chart. But I will say this, with the last TRE, Dr. Gonzalez, and you discussed everything that we put out there, we couldn't rely on the state back then. We knew there was an issue with security, and we asked the city of McAllen to support us, and they value education. They know what it means to the city. I think we're at the same point. Without this money, we're not going to be able to retain our teachers, our support staff, you know, everybody that makes it happen. And with all due respect to, you know, the board and yourself and your team, you all play a big part in this, but the true big part in the success of McAllen ISD is our teachers and our support staff. We all know that. Yeah. And so I think what we're doing with this is asking our community if that's what they want to do. And so it's not that we're imposing on it, but we're deciding, you know, to let the city decide. And I think if we package it the right way we did with the last TRE, then the city will take a look at it. So it's a hard decision, and I respect everybody's view on it, but I think it's the right thing to do at this point. So I'll yield at this time.
If I may, Mr. President?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And I do want to preface it with that, as I respect everybody's opinion on this, obviously. But I think back to the last TRE and all the meetings that I went out to, whether it was meeting with a Lions Club or church groups, or whether it was meeting with MEDC or the Chamber, every group I met with all over the city had many valuable questions, but when it came down to providing safe environments for our students, and when it came down to telling the story on what we were going to do with science labs, and when it came down to talking about the 19 officers, even some that weren't so inclined to take a tax hike understood the importance of it. And I feel confident that we're at a space right now as a city that we could do it again. I strongly believe that we would have community support, because our kids are counting on us as adults right now. And at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? We're going to work with what we have, but if we're allowed to do this, I believe that that's what's in the best interest of our district, and that's why I've brought it to our board for you all's consideration.
All right. Mr. Alvarado, are you?
Yes, I yield.
Trustee Vela?
Oh, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Richards. I want to thank Trustee Saldivar, because when he first brought this idea forward, I thought it was, well, I gave it a lot of thought, and it's a pretty bold idea that he's bringing forward, and I understand that administration has kind of taken a liking to it, and that's okay. It's a bold idea to get where we need to get, but there's a lot of ifs with this idea. And the biggest if is, can we wait till November to make this thing work? Because that's when we would have to pass this. And if we do pass it, is it enough money to get us to where we need to be? And the other thing is, will the community accept it, and will the community pass it? We have to consider that it's a general election in November, and there'll be people coming out from a lot of draws, if you will, to vote. And well, the history of McAllen is not real favorable when it comes to bonds and TREs. We got fortunate in the last one, and I think that was because we played our cards right. Bold steps in getting this passed. I think we need to start with bold steps today. You know, we have recurring expenses that need to be paid with recurring revenues, and we're not increasing our recurring revenues, so therefore I think we need to cut our recurring expenses. It makes sense. We do it at home. If you don't have enough money to pay your mortgage, well, what do? You turn off some lights, and you raise the thermostat, and you don't drive as much, and you start saving money. Maybe you don't buy the elite package of food. Maybe you buy just the ordinary pack of food, or whatever it is. You cut your expenses because you cut your expenses because your revenue isn't enough to get you there. It's common sense, economics 101, if you will. And I think we need to start that now. I think that's a bold step that we need to take with now. I know we've already approved the budget for the rest of the year, but it can be fine-tuned going forward, because the next budget is the one that's going to be most important. Will the community accept it? It's tough, man. the economy right now is, the environment is very uncertain, very volatile. What's coming next, we don't know. And again, if we put our cards or all the eggs in one basket for this TRE, and then it doesn't pass, then what do we do? You know? Again, my bold step is to start today working on cutting recurring expenses. I'll yield and reserve time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee Vella. Trustee Aliceta.
Trustee Saldivar alluded to an audit that we would have to do. How much does something like that cost?
We haven't gone out for quotes. We're hoping that we wouldn't have anything higher than about $10,000, but right now that's just speculation. Again, we have not solicited quotes. We could certainly do that. Our external auditors, I'm sure, would be able to provide those services, but there are other entities and organizations that also would provide efficiency audits for the district. So we certainly go out for quotes. Again, we're just speculating that hopefully nothing above the 10,000 range for that particular audit. We also have the cost for, obviously, the election cost itself. The only basis we have on that is what we normally have spent, or a range of what we spent for trustee elections, and we've typically set aside a budget of $50,000. I don't know if that would be the case for this. We'd have to coordinate that with the Hidalgo County Tax Office in their election group.
Yeah, my memory is that it's like $38,000 to run an election
To run.
in the county. So that with the 10, so we, okay. I was just wondering, if this failed, how much money would we have wasted? And so I was thinking an audit was a lot more than that, so that's not.
Yes. Well, that's what we're hoping, but we have not solicited quotes to see what the market is for something like this. And in fact, this will be the first year these are conducted. And like in our case, they're not required, so as we're just opting to do it, if the board elects to opt to go in that direction. But districts are exempt for the next 2 years and from having to conduct efficiency audits. Yes, ma'am. That's what I've been saying.
That's not a mandatory thing, that's a, so that,
It
so we can say.
typically is a mandatory item, but because of the declared disaster that the governor approved or declared.
With the freeze.
It's a freeze, yes, for 2 years, and I'll bring that up here. It was part of the package, and I don't mind just taking a little time to come up. But I'll go back to that so you can see that. So in this case, what I've been hearing was that there was an interest of possibly having one, and let me see, here we go. Let me bring that up right here. Yes, right here. Okay, what it is, and it's right here. It was in your package. It's part of the efficiency audit on there, but we've got this exemption that's occurring. The board of a district located in an area declared a disaster area by the governor may hold a VTR during a 2-year period following the election. The date of the election, can hold the VTR during a 2-year period following the date of the declaration without conducting an efficiency audit. Governor Abbott declared a state of disaster in all Texas counties because of the severe weather, Winter Storm Uri. Consequently, during the 2-year period following this disaster declaration, all districts are not required to conduct an efficiency audit prior to conducting the VATRE. So really what they're saying is that for 2022 and 2023, districts are exempt from this requirement because the governor declared a disaster as a result of Winter Storm Uri. If we move forward with an efficiency audit, it is at the district's option at this point. But we could proceed with an election without the audit this year and next year.
Mrs. Aliceta, could I interject real
Yes.
quick? All right. On our website, it says financial transparency, and you, Trustee, you're very familiar with this website. But on there, it has all the information about every check we write, everything we spend. It has debt management, federal grant list, annual comprehensive financial reports, check registers, budget, fund balance, everything's there. The reality, we probably don't need an exterior efficiency audit because we're one of the few districts that we've been transparent for 7 years, and all our financial records are right there on the website under financial transparency. And that in of itself, I know earlier I advocated for, but having I know where you're going with this, you know, managing costs in this. I think our story is there, and the administration could leverage this story very, very well. Thank you for allowing me to interject.
May I
Thank you,
follow-
trustee.
May I follow up on that question?
Trustee Villa?
Thank you. I'll follow up on trustee Saldivar's. If we did elect to go with the efficiency audit, how is it presented? How are the findings presented? Is it a numerical score, a letter score, or is it just facts? What?
I think there's certain criteria they're looking at in terms of the financial health of the district. That report would be just a report to the Board of Trustees at the conclusion of their audit.
But we get A's, B's, C's, depending on our fiscal transparency, you know, the different ratings that we have. How is it this?
Yes, sir.
And obviously, we need to feel real confident that that efficiency rate audit comes out with a superior rating, if you will, for us to present it to the public. So I'm just wondering how it's presented, or how the findings are presented. If it would be too complicated or not too complicated, people for understanding and purposes.
These are the actual guidelines that I placed them on there. They're actually on that attachment. It's just a link on that last attachment that we had on here. And Mr. Saldivar was correct when he said it. There are several data elements on here to look at. I haven't
Without
looked
getting
at
into-
the actual outcome, how they
Okay.
determined the outcome of it. But he is correct. As I was scanning through it also, a lot of the information that they're requesting is what we already have in terms of financial transparency. A lot of the information comes from our ACFR. A lot of it comes from the information, you know, that we provide on there. It does have some items on here that they're asking for. A lot of it we already have. There may be some that we would have to provide for them. But, you know, you look at your district expenditures, expenditures per student on there as they look at this. And it's about 16 or 19 items on there. Let me see, instructions for auditors to prepare the summary of the results. I'll go down to Appendix A here. Let's see, contains a summary of the audit results. The summary is intended to facilitate the public meeting regarding the proposed tax rate on there. The summary includes, and then you'll have some items on here that they're addressing. So, I have not looked into the detail to determine whether it is a pass, no pass, if it's a rating A, B, C, D, or F rating on there, or if they just come and present, you know, what they found in terms of those particular data elements that they're required to audit for us.
We're 45 minutes into overtime already, Ms. Richards. Anyway, I appreciate that. Thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much. I pass.
But we can certainly look into that.
Trustee Alexander, the floor is yours.
No, I said yesterday I spoke my mind on this one.
All right. Trustee Peña?
Okay, I'm listening to everything everybody is saying, but I have some questions. So the previous TRE, which I was not part of, but I'm familiar with, I'm part of the community, I've been active in everything as well. That gave us 19 more officers. It allowed us to make some improvements. It allowed us to be able to make our schools more secure. And by no means am I at any point, when I say security, is trying to indicate that our schools are not safe. I believe our schools are safe. I believe that if you drop your child off at school tomorrow, you should be able to pick them up safely at the end of the day. I believe our schools are safe. The climate in the country is different, and these things happen. And so I do believe our schools are safe, but I do believe that we also need to do more to pay our officers better. That's part of paying our staff more. So if we got all of those officers and all of that information from that previous TRE, that's great. How did we get to this point? How did we end up 5.5 or 6 million, whatever it is, in the hole? How did we approve a budget yesterday, but today we're 5.5 or 6 million in the hole? How did we get there? Yet we are still 7+ points difference in the state average pay. Districts around us paying more. They're not raising taxes, they're actually lowering taxes. I'm sure everybody saw the report that came out of Mission yesterday. And you keep referring to our scores are through the roof. Yep, our scores are through the roof, and they're gonna be awesome, and I think everybody's gonna be really proud. I'm proud. I'm proud of our teachers who stuck through. I'm proud of our teachers who had to turn around and teach virtually overnight, basically. I'm proud of the kids and the parents and the families who stuck with it, who showed up every day to learn, to try to log on, who navigated the mess that was trying to log on and stay logged on. I'm proud of the district for providing the technology. The one thing that happened was that we were prepared, right? We had the technology, so we were at an advantage there. And our kids were able to jump from one teaching method to another basically overnight. So I do think that our teachers need to be compensated, and our team of custodians and the ladies and the men from the cafeteria that stood in the sun every day, making sure that our kids had food. I applaud the district for providing food, but how did we get here? How are we $5.5 or $6 million in the hole now turned around and asking the community to please come together and help us? The community has been there for us, and we need to be there for them. I think we need to look at how we're spending our money. Special projects, innovative projects that are a one-time expense, they need to be looked at closer. There's projects we can put aside for now, find the money to cover that right now, and then start looking at how we're spending our money. Trustee Vela is absolutely correct when he says the impact needs to start now, and that means we need to start looking at the way we're spending money. And I just cannot, in good faith, ask the community right now. I just stopped the gas up at almost $4.50, close to $5 a gallon, and I don't drive a good car, so I'm gassing up all the time. I can't imagine a family of 5 or 6 little children whose mom and dad work minimum wage jobs, more than one job at that, having to pay extra tax money because we cannot control the way we spend our money. We can be the best district in the world, but we can't come up with the money to make our budget balance, and that makes me very upset. I'm embarrassed about that, and I'm not going to be quiet about it anymore. We can't just say, oh, well, the community needs to help us. We need to help ourselves, and that's where we're at this point, and I think we really need to start looking at how we're spending the money. We need to look at how many employees do we have that are absolutely necessary? Can some job positions not be filled and maybe consolidate that work somehow so that we're not bringing in more staff and more staff, especially at the administration level? We are top heavy, and there's data to prove that. And we need to start looking at the way we're spending money. And I am absolutely upset about this today. I'm upset that we're even thinking of asking the community right now, the way things are, for an extra penny or a half a penny or whatever it turns out to be, because we need $3 million. We can find $3 million every year. We can find that money to continue to pay our teachers what they deserve. And trust me, our teachers, our custodians, our bus drivers, our cafeteria people, they all deserve to get paid, and so do our officers. Because if you look at the money that our officers are getting paid in comparison to other districts, it's not enough. And we're asking them to stand in front of those bullets when they come flying, should they come flying. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of the people that are doing the hard work and stop being top heavy. And I am upset about this, and I'm not going to let up on it. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Trustee Peña. Trustee Alvarado.
No, I just want to add that I think I agree that we need to, take a hard look at special projects is difficult, and I know I've been harping on that because even you take that out, it's 1 year. But yesterday, we voted on the budget, and there were 2 nay votes on the budget, myself and Trustee Sandoval. So I'm all for it if we want to bring back stuff on the budget and start looking at stuff that we can take off that can free up money for reoccurring costs. So, I mean, we're all talking about that we're gonna, oppose spending, but that time was yesterday with the budget. We 2 votes against it, everybody else passed it, it is what it is. So now we're moving forward, and I do agree that our teachers and our food personnel that were out during COVID and all that, they did a lot for us. But unfortunately, the issue is, and we can fight over pennies here on our district level, but it's the state. The state continues to underfund us on mandates all the time that are not funded. And it's, to be quite frank with you, that's one of the reasons why, for myself, serving on the board, that I don't want to continue serving on the board, because it's unrealistic to fund surrounding school districts the way they do. McAllen's not funded the same level. We're in the same area, we have the same kids. We're property rich compared to other, districts across the state, and it's just not fair. The only way that we can continue to ask for more income is by asking for TREs and bonds. And I know this community. I mean, it's and you ask my family, polled them, and people called, some for, some against. It's a tough issue. And so all this is taken. So I'm going to ask that we not only take the passion and vote again. If you're not supportive of this, I totally understand that. But go out and vote in the state elections. Vote for people that are for public education, that will fund. We can argue about this all the time, but that's truly where the issue is. And myself am going to put myself out there too, more in state issues. And I'm not going to have my head in the sand anymore and hope that it goes away, because if we don't do anything and the governor doesn't change his stance and he wins re-election, I hate to be in your shoes, Dr. Gonzalez, because you're not going to have an increase or your shoes. And now I know why you're retiring, because without increased funding, what do we do? We're fighting over programs, and kids want programs and all that. So with all, and I totally respect where you're coming from, Trustee Pena, and I'm not trying to argue with you, because I really do respect your passion and your thoughts, and of course everybody else is on here. But I just kind of want to point that out, that if we do want to look at other projects, I mean, I'm for it. We had 2 votes yesterday. I can't bring that back. I was in the minority, but I'll be more than happy to revisit some of these things. But the issue is this right here. We all had our say. When we do go for a vote, I'm going to ask for a roll call, and I yield back.
Thank you, Trustee Alvarado. Trustee Vela.
I meant to ask this question to Ms. Richards. I appreciate the time back. Ms. Richards, do you have a line in our sheet this afternoon? It says the INS tax rate can only be used to pay the principal and interest payments on bonds sold. Okay.
Yes, sir.
We've worked really, really hard during my tenure on the board as a group to lower our debt service, our debt balance. And I think we have probably the lowest debt balance of any school district, if not in Texas, certainly in our region. What happens with the money we're collecting for that? Do we switch it over to M&O? Do we have to have a board vote? Is the money still available? How do we use it?
Yes, you cannot do that, sir.
But does that tax just go away?
That tax just goes away, yes.
So,
That used to be what people kind of refer to as the tax swap, which is no longer allowed.
so, once we pay off our debt, everyone's gonna get a tax cut.
Yes, and even you can see that happen even this next year, because when you look at our current INS tax rate of 8.84 cents, and we're projecting it to be 7.67 cents, so they are going to see a reduction in the INS by a little over a penny.
When does that change?
Well, we'll come to the board for approval. Tax rates get approved in August,
Okay.
sometime August, September.
So, as our debt balance changes, our INS begins to go down.
Yes, sir.
What about staggering TREs to keep the INS at the same level by going out for smaller TREs? I mean,
That is
that
a
strategy
possibility.
is
Because
very-
you're looking at the total tax rate.
Right.
then, yes.
we're not charging you anymore, your house doesn't go up, house, but yet the money becomes available because you're not using it to pay your past debt, you're using it to pay current debt, right?
Yes, sir.
How soon can we begin to lower or change that INS?
Well.
Next August?
Well, when it comes to bonded debt, we have debt maturing
Okay.
in 2030.
Okay,
Yes, sir. When it comes to the bonded debt,
2030
2030.
is when our debt goes away,
Yes, sir.
so we have until 2030. 2029, we could go out for a $50 million TRE and fund it with the same tax dollars we're collecting today, right?
Yes, sir. It would be 2030 for bonded debt.
And I'm using the examples for clarity purposes more than anything at this point in time. Okay. All right, thank you. I pass. I yield, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Saldivar.
Thank you. As we discussed over the last couple of meetings especially, this is a multifaceted approach. And this is a piece of it. And to Trustee Vela's point, he's absolutely correct. We have to start managing our costs. Trustee Peña is absolutely correct. These projects have to be relooked at. Even those that we approved recently, there's nothing wrong with going back and sitting down and looking at those, if they haven't already gone out to contract and haven't already been started, to relook and see how we might be able to manage those in an efficient way. And we should be talking that together in a couple of more workshops as we continue to move forward. And that is the reason I could not support this, because it did not include an element that was demonstrating that how we were gonna continue to manage cost avoidance, cost savings, and cost and expense management. We have to put that component. And in my conversation with Dr. Gonzalez over the last 24 hours, he seems to be committed to that. We just now need to get together as a board as to how we're gonna do that to help him execute that within the district to what the comments will be made. That is one piece. The other is working with the state legislators and trying to change the formula regarding membership versus ADA. That's another piece. And then we need to be looking at the various programs and services that our community wants, and see what programs and services that our community does not want. And so if there's now a shift, then those costs should be now moved over. So like we had a class that used to have 30 kids, now only have 9 with 1 teacher. We need to kind of rethink that as we move forward. The other element is we need to look at the leadership level, at the AM and AE, is redefine those probably into 3 categories. One is those AE in the campuses, AM, which is at the central administration, and then probably an AD, which is all your directors at that level. And that way, going forward, we can do a better job of how we budget and how we do with our budget in compensating the various groups much more effectively. It's very difficult when they're all mixed together. But the point I'm trying to make, and I know I'm belaboring it, is this is not one and done. It's not one and only. They're all the elements that we are raising here. But if we don't move forward now, and then we find ourselves closer past to the election, and we say, folks start seeing, especially when it comes to concerns about safety and security, when it comes about compensation, when it comes about facilities, when it comes about maintenance, the time's passed. So by voting today, we still have one more chance to actually call the election 78 days before. So I suggest we go with this and then sit down with the administration to make sure all of these elements are actually put into play that were raised. And if they aren't between now and that date, then we don't pull the trigger. Now, the last thing is the TRE, it was $7 million more from local tax, and it gained us around $7 million from the state. And that allowed us to get the 19 officers and everything else. Once we moved the TRE money out of INS to M&O, after HB3, we had to make a decision, so we moved it back to INS. So that TRE tax stopped. That state funding stopped. And so those 19 officers now got absorbed into the normal business operation of compensation with no additional money coming in that was on an offset that going forward. Not good or bad, not right or wrong, just pointing out that this is not a TRE on top of another TRE. That TRE that is the public supported does not exist. There's no funds being collected for that. Now, the last thing I'd say is if the board is more comfortable with going with a 0.0289, which is what the taxpayer is paying right now. I mean, they're already being charged that. If we were to go to the taxpayer and make that permanent, that they are where they are because of the disaster pennies, which are going to end. So it stays about the same as far as there's no additional money if we wanted to go that route. Thank you.
Trustee
Thank you,
Peña.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Trustee
I have
Saldivar.
something else, one more thing.
Yes,
Tony,
ma'am.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
So when we decided, or when when the decision was made, and I wasn't at that meeting, to support this 12.5 million UTRGV partnership, did we go to the community with that? No, we did not. I'd like to know from Dr. Gonzalez or the administrative team, is the 12.5 million that we've committed to UTRGV a one-time expense?
The 12.5 is, but there's some recurring costs that come with the facility.
Absolutely, that's the point that I'm trying to make. It's 12.5 million right now, and then if we were prudent, we would have gone and done a 5-year plan and found out if it was feasible, a 5-year feasibility plan. What's it gonna cost us 5 years down the road? Is it gonna continue to cost us? How many students are benefiting from that school, by the way? How many do we take in every year?
The plan is to eventually have somewhere around 450 students.
Early college high school model, about 125, 100 kids every grade level till you scale up to full capacity. Early college high school model. We have an early college high school model, Achieve Early College High School, high achieving blue ribbon school, 2 years in a row. Kudos to everyone that supports, that does their work at Achieve Early College High School. So, my point in this for the community to know is that why couldn't we just wait on this project? We can partner with UTRGV anytime. We can partner with UTRGV next year, year after that, year after that. They're always going to be in the early college, high school game, always. So just so that they understand, the community understands where I'm going with this. It is not a one-time $12.5 million expense. $12.5 million. We're looking at about $3 million that we need every year, more or less, 3.2, that we need every year to be able to give our teachers a little bit of a pay raise. That's 3 years of pay raises right there that we could have saved. And we could have added a career pathway in the medical field and Achieve and partnered with UTRGV on that pathway too. It's not out of the realm of reality. And so that's why I'm upset. I just think we need to be careful about all these special projects, and let's not just say, oh my God, chance of a lifetime, $12.5 million, and we're done, because we're not done. Because textbooks are expensive, because teachers are expensive, and we're gonna have to find a director for that school. We're gonna have to find teachers for that school. We may even have to pull teachers from Achieve. How fair is that to the Achieve kids, to the Achieve faculty, to the Achieve community? It's not fair. We need to look at the way we're spending money, and that's the bottom line. We can find $3.2 million every year. We can find it to give our teachers the little raise, whatever little raise, and they deserve so much more that they deserve. But that's my point with that. Let's look at how we're spending money on special projects, because that's why we ended up in this hole. And we can certainly find a way to dig ourselves out. And again, I yield the floor. I'm sorry if I'm upset. I apologize to the community. I am just passionate about this, and I'm no longer going to sit there silently.
Thank you, Trustee Peña.
I yield.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, board, it is now time
For a vote?
to call for a vote. Is there a second? We can call the vote.
Yes.
That's what we'll do. We will do a roll call vote. I'm going to start with Trustee Peña. Oh, you're muted.
A resounding no on my part. A resounding no.
A resounding no by Trustee Peña. Thank you, ma'am. Trustee Saldivar.
It's a yes for the benefit of our community.
Thank you, Trustee Saldivar. Trustee Alvarado.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Alvarado. Trustee Vela.
I'm a no.
Trustee Vela is a no. Trustee Alicera.
Yes.
She is a yes. I will be a yes. That means that the yeas carry it 4-2 with the one abstention from Trustee Suarez that is not here. I do have to think that administration heard everything today. Does this mean that we are going to go forward with the voter-approved tax ratification election? No, it does not. We have time to prepare. We have some adjustments that our board has asked for administration to look into to really ensure that this is what is best, not only for our school district, but for our community. I appreciate everyone's discussion. I appreciate everyone's passion, and I know that administration will do right by what they've heard over the last 48 hours. Trustee Alvarado.
So just to clarify, how long would the audit take? Más o menos, couple months?
The audit is up to our discretion if we decide to proceed with it. It's not mandatory because of Winter Storm Uri from February 2021.
I hear you.
If we do the audit, it's the wearing a special dress when you go out dancing.
I understand, so I'm just asking for a timeline. So then the actual call for the election, when would that be? If we were to proceed, because we still got to vote for it, right?
That is correct. So I believe the latest that we can call for the election, Ms. Richards, would be in August, right?
Yes, sir. It's 78 days prior to that. I believe that makes it August 22nd. I've got the timeline. I'll bring that up. I believe it's August 22nd. As far as the efficiency audit, right now, if we were to use the timeline that they've given us, it would typically be a 4-month, which is why they asked for the board to approve by July 8th. But I'm sure we could work with the auditing firm if that needed to be, the timeline needed to compress. I'm sure they would fit in, their work within that period of time. I'm sure they're very flexible.
I would ask, the reason I'm asking that, I'd like to have at least a week of reviewing that, because I know is there a timeline before we actually, vote on a final decision on that. Not on the same day, not that you would, but just a
Right.
little bit of time, just as, to Trustee Sandoval's point, just to see where we're at financially on some of the matters. So I know we're on thin ice, because that's not on the agenda, but I just want to clarify next steps.
And
Am
then
I okay?
August
Mr. Crane, are we
22nd.
okay to proceed? This conversation, we're still good within our
Well,
realm?
right now, you've already taken the vote on the item.
I'm just asking on the schedule, are we good to clarify? That's all
I
I'm
can
doing.
clarify the schedule, okay, but let's keep that
That's fine.
as short as possible.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, in your comments, you said that there were 2 no's to the budget. I was one of the no's. It was 5-2, and it was a roll call, and I was a no.
We'll have Natalie review.
Just wanted to clarify.
Well,
I voted no.
So there was 3 votes against it.
So it's 4-3
No, it
rather
was
than
5-2.
5-2.
I think so.
No, it was 5-2.
Well, he called 5-2, but I think it was 4-3. We can go back and
Just-
review this.
just
We'll go back and review.
Okay.
Just want to let you know.
Because of the time delay back between Mr. Farina was talking too fast, and that's why.
All right.
The August 22nd is correct on calling the election.
Trustee Saldivar.
Thank you. I am dead serious. Over the next 2 months, before we're asked to call for this election or not, everything that's been mentioned, this time it has to happen. We have to have the team of 8 with the ELT working with us to sit down and find where the cost savings, cost management, and also expense management, we seriously have to do that. And all of these things that were mentioned have to be, discussed. And the other is if Trustee Benya feels as strongly as she does, she has a right as a trustee, having voted on that item, to put it back on the agenda. It only takes one trustee to do that.
All right.
I would hope that we would all just have workshops and conversations about all of these items, all of these projects, all the possibilities of what we need to do.
We're on a fine
before we
line,
get
Sam.
there, because I don't think we should be put in that situation.
We're on a very fine line,
Thank you.
but thank you so much. Before we wrap
I'll
up,
move to adjourn the meeting at 6:10.
if, before we get to that point, today we say goodbye. Cindy Medrano Richards is retiring. We wanted to send her out with a bang. That's why we put you through the last 48 hours. But we thank you for everything you've done for the McAllen community, McAllen ISD, your years of service. I know you started here when you were 7 years old. So how many years of service?
29.
29 years. That makes you 36, and we're very appreciative of your 29 years of service that you've done. So I'm going to ask the audience and those on the dais to please join me in a round of applause. Thank you so much. We know that you have big plans, and I hope that you enjoy the retirement. So thank you.
I'll be calling you, Cindy.
You'd have to get through the voicemail, but good luck.
Motion to.
I would also be remiss if I did not thank Mr. Steve Crane for his many years of service, sir. We thank you for your diligence and your prudence in making sure that this board in front of you and so many other boards that came before us stayed on that track and stayed on that line, and we appreciate everything you've done. So I will ask again for another round of applause. At 6:11, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yes.
We have a second. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. The ayes carry it, 6-0. Thank you so much. Enjoy.